The NBA season is right around the corner, so you know what we gotta do. We gotta rank every single NBA team from 30 to 1. I'm super excited to be doing this because this was so difficult to make, so I have these teams in 5 different tiers. We're still ranking it 30 to 1 though. And this will be the first of the rankings. We're gonna be doing this after major events in the NBA this season, so there'll be a updated ranking come the end of the midseason tournament, trade deadline / all-star break, as well at the end of the NBA season as well. So if you guys enjoyed these rankings, I would appreciate it if you drop the thumbs up on this video. And hey, I might have your team a little bit lower than where you think I would have had them, so let me know in the comments. And can we get 1,000 likes on this video? I would appreciate that a lot. Now let's get into it. So coming in at number 30 to kick off tier 5, we have the San Antonio Spurs. Yeah, I don't know if this is a hot take, having these Spurs to finish as the worst team in the NBA this season, but that's what I think is going to happen. It's going to be all about Victor Wembanyama in his rookie season. I don't know, and I don't really believe that he's going to play north of 60 games this year. He's going to be on a minutes restriction at times. I still think this team is lacking its floor general, its franchise point guard to really lead this offense. And while I do love some other young players on this team like Devin Vassell, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, City Sissoko, I still think this team lacks the top end talent and the veteran talent to compete with other teams in the Western Conference and in the NBA. And we just live in a day and age where you can have 5 nice young pieces and that's still not enough to compete with the rest of the league, because a lot of other teams either have 5 really nice veteran pieces or just as many nice young pieces. So yeah, I am predicting the San Antonio Spurs to finish as the worst team in the NBA this season, but they still have a bright future. Coming in at number 29, we have the Detroit Pistons. So yeah, I have the Spurs finishing as the worst team in the Western Conference. We have the Detroit Pistons finishing as the worst team in the Eastern Conference. And like the Spurs, the Pistons have plenty of young talent. They have Cade Cunningham going into year 3, Jaden Ivey going into year 2, as well as Jalen Duren. They just drafted Asor Thompson with the 5th overall pick. And they have a solid core of veterans as well, with Bojan Bogdanovic, Joe Harris, Monte Morris. And they added one of the better head coaches in the NBA, Monty Williams, to the fold. But this team is still young. It's still inexperienced. I think this team will be a playoff team potentially in 2025 or 2026, but this year it's still going to be a developmental year for the Pistons. I do think that they finish as the worst record in the Eastern Conference, but that record doesn't matter for them this year. It's really all about Cade's, Ivy's, and Duren's development, as well as Asor Thompson, and just seeing this team progress for 2025 and onward. Coming in at number 28, we have the Charlotte Hornets. Man, I think this would be such a disappointing season for the Hornets, but I do think that they are going to finish at the bottom end of the Eastern Conference in another year of not making the real playoffs for LaMelo Ball. They just maxed out LaMelo Ball in the offseason. They just took Brandon Miller with the 2nd overall pick. They are going to be bringing back Miles Bridges into the fold, and this team still has a good amount of young talent, like those 3 that I just mentioned, as well as Mark Williams to pick off his strong end to his rookie season at the 5 spot. I'm a big fan of their late 1st round pick, Nick Smith, out of Arkansas. And we'll see what veterans like Terry Rozier and Gordon Hayward can give them, but the NBA just has too much talent. This is a fine team. They have some nice building blocks and some nice veterans, but the teams ahead of them on this list just have more talent and more top-end talent at that. Coming in at number 27, we have the Washington Wizards, a team that traded away Bradley Beal and Kristaps Porzingis in the offseason. Yeah, I still kind of like the Washington Wizards as a team compared to the Hornets and the Pistons, because even though they did trade away Bradley Beal in a deal that brought him Chris Paul, they were able to flip Chris Paul for Jordan Poole, who's a nice young scorer. They re-signed Kyle Kuzma. They still have some other nice young pieces like Corey Kispert and Denny Avdia and Daniel Gafford. They did draft a complete project though in the top 10 with Bilal Coulibaly, so I don't expect him to do too much in his rookie season, but I'm a huge fan of Tyus Jones running the show for them. I think he could really be a nice floor raiser. I'm just happy that the Wizards finally went into a new direction, trading away Bradley Beal. It's going to be a rough 2024, maybe a rough 2025, but they'll be better off 2026 and onwards. Coming in at number 26, we have the Houston Rockets. So maybe I'm a little bit lower on Houston like some other people are, but they're still a good team, but it's crazy. There's just so much talent in the NBA. I have them here at 26th. I don't think that they're going to be a playing tournament team. And while I do like the additions of Fred VanVleet and Dylan Brooks and the new head coach coming over in Ime Udoka, I think this team will be inconsistent at times, and at sometimes they're going to look like they could be one of the better teams in the Western Conference, and at sometimes they're going to look like they shouldn't even be in consideration for even a playing tournament spot. Like the Pistons though, I don't really think this is too much on their record that's important this year. It's really about the development of Jalen Green, Amen Thompson, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Şengün. And those veteran free agency signings that they completed a couple months ago should be acting as more supporting cast than the primary members for their team this year, because it's all about the development for their young core, which I'm still a fan of. Coming in at number 25, we have the Portland Trailblazers. Like the Washington Wizards, finally traded away one of their franchise's best players in Damian Lillard, which happened pretty recently. It's crazy. They traded away Damian Lillard and Yusuf Nurkic and Drew Holiday, who they got for Damian Lillard, but I still think that this Trailblazers team is pretty solid on paper. I love their trio of young guards of Scoot Henderson, Anthony Simons, and Shaedon Sharpe. They also got Malcolm Brogdon in that Drew Holiday trade as well, who's a nice veteran point guard. He was just the 6th man of the year last year. They have some nice defensive forwards with Matisse Thybulle and Jeremy Grant, and 2 really solid centers with DeAndre Ayton, who's a positive offensive center, and Robert Williams, who's a positive defensive center. So they can look to play the hot hand with that, and that kind of fits more to Chauncey Billups' play style. So yeah, I'm kind of a fan of the Portland Trailblazers this year. I still think they're a tier 5 of team, so that might be a hot take for me, having them with a better record at the end of the season than the Houston Rockets. And at 24, the last team in tier 5 are the Orlando Magic. I was debating to put them in tier 4 or tier 5. I really like the Magic. I love their young core with Franz, Paolo, Markelle Fultz, Anthony Black, but I don't think that this team is ready just yet to make a playoff appearance. I do think that will come in 2025. So let's kick off tier 4 at 23 with the Toronto Raptors. The Toronto Raptors were a team that really didn't change their direction too much this offseason. They didn't re-sign Fred VanVleet. They didn't trade for Damian Lillard. They didn't trade Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby. They pretty much just stayed flat with the team they had. And I do think that Scottie Barnes is going to take a year 3 jump. I do think Pascal Siakam is going to prove to everybody why he's a top 5 power forward in the game. But the Raptors also lost Nick Nurse. They have a rookie head coach in Darko Rajakovic. This team could really lack some scoring if Scottie Barnes doesn't take the jump to the next level at the offensive position. And they're relying too much on Siakam and OG Anunoby and Gary Trent Jr. So I think the big thing for the Raptors this year is to keep developing Scottie Barnes and then maybe look to trade Pascal Siakam towards the deadline if you're not going to re-sign him. Next up at 22, we have a team that I'm definitely lower on than some other people, and that are the Indiana Pacers. Yeah, a lot of people are predicting the Indiana Pacers to make the playoffs this year. I think they could maybe sneak in as a play-in tournament team, but I'm not really buying it. I love Tyrese Haliburton, don't get me wrong. I love the addition of Obi Toppin for how little it cost them. He's going to be fun to watch there in the front court with Miles Turner. I think Benedict Mathurin could take a next step, but I just think for 2024, they are going to be a little bit worse than some other teams ahead of them in the Eastern Conference that definitely have more veteran talent. I think Tyrese Haliburton will jump into being one of the better point guards in the NBA for sure, but I just wonder about the supporting cast around him that could help him get into the playoffs. All right, so just a quick jump right here. Tier 5 is basically teams that I don't think are going to make the play-in tournament or the playoffs. And tier 4 are teams that I wouldn't be shocked if they made the playoffs at all, but I'm not really expecting them to. So just wanted to clarify that. At number 21, we do have the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Brooklyn Nets did make the playoffs in 2023, but they traded away Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving at the deadline. They were not great after those trades, and then they got bounced by the Philadelphia 76ers in round 1. I'm really excited to see Mikal Bridges play a full season as the true number 1 on this team. I like that they brought back Cam Johnson. I'm excited to see Ben Simmons try to do something this year and see if Nick Claxton can take a jump again as the defensive rim protector for them. But I don't have high expectations for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think that they make the playoffs, and I do think that they're one of the teams that made the playoffs in 2023 that don't in 2024. Next up at number 20, we got the Utah Jazz. The Jazz definitely exceeded expectations last year, and I think that they're going to be a good team this year around Lauri Markkanen. I love the rookie Keontae George out of Baylor. They traded for John Collins this offseason. They re-signed Jordan Clarkson. They still have Colin Sexton. Walker Kessler was one of the league's best rookies last year and one of the league's best rim protectors as a rookie. So this Jazz team has a ton of talent. I do think that they could make the play-in tournament, but hey, the NBA is as talented as ever, so even though that this Jazz team has some nice players on paper, there's just a bunch of other teams in the West, in my opinion, that are just better than them. At 19, we have the Chicago Bulls. All right, I hated what the Chicago Bulls did this past offseason. I don't think that they're going to make the playoffs this season, and they didn't get any assets for DeMar DeRozan, who's an expiring contract, or possibly sell high on Zach LaVine. But instead, they extended Nikola Vucevic, they signed Javon Carter, re-signed Kobe White. Lonzo Ball is going to be out for this season. I'm scared Patrick Williams isn't going to break out because he's once again going to be the 4th or 5th scoring option on this team. And I do think that Chicago should have did what Washington or Portland did and traded some of their best players this offseason. Even if you were going to be not so good in 2024, you'd be much better going forward. But yeah, they just might be in NBA purgatory. At number 18, we have the OKC Thunder. Speaking of amazing young cores though, the OKC Thunder have maybe arguably the best young core in the NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a borderline top 10 player in the league. Josh Giddey was one of the best young players last year. J-Dubs, Jalen Williams was one of the best rookies. They're getting Chet Holmgren in his rookie season. They drafted Cason Wallace in the lottery. We might see Jalen Williams, the other one with an I, or Ousmane Dieng take a jump this year. But I do think that this Thunder team lacks the top end talent to compete with some of these other teams in the Western Conference. But as they are higher up here in tier 4, I would not be shocked if they made the playoffs. I would be a little shocked though if they were a top 4 team in the Western Conference, in my opinion. Coming in at number 17, we have the New Orleans Pelicans. Yeah, so I do have the Pelicans, maybe higher than as you expect. I'm banking that maybe this is going to be the first year that we see a fully healthy Zion Williamson. I love the way Brandon Ingram finished off his 2023 season as the number 1 option, as an elite playmaker. I love the lottery draft pick of Jordan Hawkins. They still have some good veterans like CJ McCollum and Jonas Valanciunas. They re-signed Herb Jones to a new contract. I love Trey Murphy. Even though he's going to be hurt to start the year, I still think he's one of the league's best young shooters. And I think this Pelicans team has a ton of talent. I think that they are currently better than the OKC Thunder on paper, and I think that's a hot take from me. At number 16, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Minnesota Timberwolves have a ton of top-end talent. They have Anthony Edwards, who is borderline a top 10 player in the NBA, or at least could finish as one at the end of the season. They have Karl-Anthony Towns, one of the league's best offensive big men. They have Rudy Gobert, one of the league's best defensive big men. They have Jaden McDaniels, one of the league's best overall perimeter defenders. They picked up some solid depth pieces this offseason like Troy Brown Jr. and Shake Milton. I think the Timberwolves have a ton of variance this season. They could finish as high as the 4 or 3 seed in the Western Conference, but they could also just miss the play-in tournament entirely. It's really about them all staying healthy and Chris Finch getting this team together. And the last team here we have in tier 4 are the Atlanta Hawks. I do think that the Atlanta Hawks will be a playoff team in 2024. Would I be entirely shocked if they missed it? No, not really, but I do think that they're going to finish as the 7th or 8th seed. They traded away John Collins this offseason, didn't get a lot of ready talent really in return, but I'm excited to see what AJ Griffin can do. I think he's going to take a next step. They re-signed DeJounte Murray, so he's not worrying about a next contract, so him and Trae Young are getting another year together. They have a good center depth with Onyeka Okongwu and Clint Capella. I'm excited to see what Jalen Johnson can do as a power forward this year. And if this Hawks team stays healthy, I think they're actually a step above some of these other teams, but I do think that they have some variance like the Timberwolves. So let's start off tier 3, where I have 6 teams in this tier. I do think that all these teams will make the playoffs, and if they didn't, I would be very, very shocked. So we're going to start off with the Sacramento Kings at 14. In retrospect, the Sacramento Kings were one of the more lucky teams last year in 2023. They didn't really have a lot of injuries, which was huge to their team's success. They really used all their cap space in the offseason to re-sign Harrison Barnes, extend Domantas Sabonis, and they acquired Chris Duarte in a minor trade. I just wonder if the Sacramento Kings team is going to take another step. Will De'Aaron Fox go up a level? Will Domantas Sabonis do the same? Could they get a breakout season from Keegan Murray? There's a lot of question marks to this team, and if Sabonis or Fox goes down with an injury, something that they didn't really see at all last year, it could be a dark end for the Beam team this season. I got the Dallas Mavericks here at 13, so big jump from them not even making the play-in tournament last year to being a top 15 team this year. And a full season with Kyrie Irving, one of the best players in the NBA, and Luka Doncic playing together this year. I think we'll see big things from the Dallas Mavericks. I really like their NBA draft, drafting 2 defensive big men with Derek Lively in the lottery and Olivier Maxence Prosper at the end of the first round. I absolutely loved what they did in free agency, getting Grant Williams on the mid-level exception, signing Seth Curry. This team definitely has some flaws on the defensive end still, but I think it's a really well-built team around Luka Doncic, and I think we'll see the Dallas Mavericks back in the playoffs here in 2024. Now, I mentioned variance before with the Atlanta Hawks or Minnesota Timberwolves. That might be an understatement when we talk about the LA Clippers. They're coming here at number 12. They could really finish all over the place this season. Because when you look at top-end talent, you really might not get better than Paul George and Kawhi Leonard. And who knows, maybe they trade for James Harden at some point this season. They also have Russell Westbrook. They have good supporting pieces around those guys too, like Mason Plumlee, KJ Martin, who they acquired in the offseason, Marcus Morris, Terrence Mann, Bones Highland, Norman Powell, who could be up there for 6th man of the year. It really just matters, is Paul George and is Kawhi Leonard going to stay healthy? Will they be healthy come playoff time? And will they load manage a ton in the NBA season? There are some new rules against that, so we'll see how the Clippers adapt to it, but I still think that they will make the playoffs this year. Coming in at number 11, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers. The Cavs definitely had a disappointing end to their phenomenal regular season last year, losing in 5 to the Knicks in round 1, but they definitely added this past offseason, getting Max Strus, Georges Niang, and I really like the draft pick of Imani Bates there in the late 2nd round. We get another year with Donovan Mitchell playing with Darius Garland. We're going to see maybe Evan Mobley take a year 3 jump after he was one of the league's best defensive players in year 2. I just wonder if there's going to be the Donovan Mitchell staying in Cleveland rumors hanging over their head this season, or will he sign an extension at some point? Coming in at number 10, we have the team that beat the Cavs in the playoffs last year, the New York Knicks. The New York Knicks were great throughout the regular season last year, going 47-35. They took the Miami Heat, who made it to the NBA Finals, to 6 games in round 2. And they added Dante DiVincenzo this offseason on their mid-level exception. They did trade away Obi Toppin though, and they did not address what I think was their biggest flaw in the playoffs last year, was they didn't really have somebody that could help out as a shot creator and a true scoring option next to Jalen Brunson, because Julius Randle, RJ Barrett really struggled in those roles for the Knicks in that round 2 series against the Heat. So it really can't all be on Jalen Brunson. So we'll see if that comes back to bite the Knicks come playoff time this year. And the last team we have here in tier 3, are the Memphis Grizzlies at number 9. The Grizzlies will be without their best player, Ja Morant, throughout the first 25 games this season, and they did trade away Tyus Jones this offseason, but they did acquire Marcus Smart, one of the league's best defensive guards. They were also very unhealthy towards the end of the season last year, with guys like Brandon Clark and Steven Adams getting injured, so they're going to be fully healthy. I'm expecting a big jump from Desmond Bane and Triple J, who's the reigning D-Boy this year in 2024, and they have also one of the most underrated coaches in the league, in my opinion, in Taylor Jenkins. So we got 4 teams here in tier 2. Basically, these are the teams that I think could make it to the NBA Finals, but they're more conference finals based teams, and that would be them overachieving this year. So to start off at number 8, we do have the Miami Heat. And as much as I hated the Heat's offseason, and as much as I really don't love their roster, it's the Miami Heat, man. They were 1 game away from losing in the play-in tournament last year to Chicago, and then they ended up beating the 1-seeded Bucks, beating the 5-seeded Knicks, beating the 2-seeded Celtics because of Eric Spoelstra, Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo. They didn't acquire Damian Lillard. They lost Max Strus to the Cavs and Gabe Vincent to the Lakers. But then again, it's the Miami Heat. They're going to get some second-round pick or undrafted player that is just going to ball out in the conference finals, and they may make the NBA Finals once again. I could see this team make it to the finals in 2024. I could also see them miss the playoffs. So I kind of had them middle towards the top of the tiers here because I got to give the Heat some props for their track record. At number 7, we have the Golden State Warriors. Man, this team really needs to stay healthy to be a tier 2 team because they are getting up there in age, and they didn't really help that problem with acquiring Chris Paul for Jordan Poole this offseason. So we're going to see how Chris Paul works out with Steph Curry in that backcourt. Undersized, not great defensively, and old, but it could do wonders offensively. We'll see how Klay Thompson is, maybe playing up a couple positions at the power forward spot. We heard he could be doing that defensively. How is Draymond going to be? Another year older, but under a new contract. Will Jonathan Kuminga or Moses Moody break out? How big of an impact is rookie Brendan Podziemski going to give them? I just couldn't doubt Steph Curry, so I have them here as number 7 in my preseason power rankings. At number 6, we have the Philadelphia 76ers. This is pretty much if they keep James Harden. Joel Embiid is the reigning NBA MVP. They did make it to the conference semifinals last year. They were one of the better teams throughout the regular season. I'm expecting a big 4th-year jump from Tyrese Maxey. And I think even if they do trade away James Harden, they're going to get some good complementary pieces around Embiid and Maxey in return in that deal. So I think the Sixers will still be competitive in the East with B-Ball Paul, Tobias Harris at least giving them some more depth, but they definitely have their flaws, and I wouldn't really expect them at all to make it to the NBA Finals in 2024. And the last team I have here in tier 2, at number 5, we have the LA Lakers. This Lakers team is still really good, and I think they got even better in the offseason. They were able to re-sign Austin Reeves, Rui Hachimura, and D'Angelo Russell. They were able to add Gabe Vincent, Taurean Prince, Jackson Hayes, and Cam Reddish. And a lot of these players have really good salary contracts that they could eventually move in a bigger deal at the trade deadline. They still have one of the league's best overall players at the top with LeBron James and Anthony Davis. And this team did make the conference finals last year as a 7th seed. I think they did get better as long as we don't see some crazy LeBron regression, which could happen because of his age, but I'm not expecting it to because we haven't seen it yet, and that's why I'm gonna have the Lakers right here at number 5. So let's start off here, tier number 1, where we have 4 teams. I think all these teams could win the NBA Finals this year. At number 4, we have the Phoenix Suns. So when the Suns did trade for Bradley Beal and added him to a big 3 of Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, I was like, okay, the depth of this team isn't very good. The defense isn't good. The bench is horrible. Like, how is this team going to look? And they let Monty Williams go, but I like the addition of Frank Vogel, who did help win a championship with the Lakers in 2020, and I loved what they did in the DeAndre Ayton trade and just adding to this bench with guys like Yusuf Nurkic, Grayson Allen, Nasir Little, Eric Gordon, Bol Bol, Yuta Watanabe, and Chimezie Metu. This Suns team actually has some depth, and they have the top end talent. I think they could be all right defensively. They just need to stay healthy. Coming in at number 3, I have the Milwaukee Bucks, the team that just acquired Damian Lillard. The Bucks have the best duo in the NBA. It's not really a debate when it comes to pure talent. 2 top 10 guys in the league in Giannis and Damian Lillard. They do lack the bench, and they do lack the top end defensive talent on the perimeter that they traded away to get Dame, with Drew Holiday going to Boston. So I love the 1 through 5 lineup of Damian Lillard and either Pat Connaughton or it's MarJon Beauchamp at the 2. Maybe there's a trade being made. You got Chris Middleton at the 3, Giannis at the 4, Brook Lopez at the 5. That's really good, especially interior defensively. I just am a little bit worried about that backcourt defensively, and that just holds the Bucks back from being a top 2 team in my opinion. At number 2, I have the reigning NBA champions, the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets did lose one of their most important role players, Bruce Brown, in the offseason. I like what they did in the draft, though, adding Julian Strawther out of Gonzaga, Jalen Pickett out of Penn State, Hunter Tyson, who had a really good summer league. We could see Christian Brown take a next step. Peyton Watson could take a jump this year with a higher opportunity role. And they still have the best player in the NBA, in my opinion, Nikola Jokic. Jamal Murray looked like a star as well throughout the playoffs as a number 2, and they still got Michael Porter Jr., who's a great offensive player. They got Aaron Gordon, who's a great defensive player. And Jokic is in his prime, man. It's hard to bet against them. I do have the Nuggets as the best team in the Western Conference and coming in at number 2. So yeah, coming in at number 1, it pains me to say this as a Knicks fan, I got the Boston Celtics. Now, this Celtics team isn't like the craziest when it comes to depth either, but their 1 through 5 is just so elite offensively and defensively. You got Drew Holiday at the 1 of the best point guards in the NBA on the defensive side of the floor, and a good offensive point guard as well. At the shooting guard spot, you could have Derek White or Jaylen Brown. You could have either Jaylen Brown at the 3 with Tatum at the 3, Tatum at the 4, or Kristaps at the 4, and then either Kristaps at the 5 or Al Horford at the 5. This team's closing 5 might be the best in the NBA. Jason Tatum is getting better and better each year. Jaylen Brown got his supermax. Derek White is one of the more underrated players in the league, and I just love the addition of Drew Holiday to the Celtics squad. So yeah, let me know what you guys think of my rankings in the comments below. Do you agree with my ranking of the Boston Celtics as the best team in the NBA? Do you think it's Denver, Phoenix, Milwaukee, or maybe the Lakers? Do you think I'm too low on teams like Orlando, Houston, Indiana, Atlanta? Please let me know in the comments below what you agree with or disagree with. I love you guys. Drop a like if you did enjoy, and I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.